but he became emperor with the help of his friends of the sorceress, and the world was saved by Tio, an ordinary loser, who was born on Pur Island in a world where demons and the monster appeared because of dark energy called Chaos, tired of demons who ravaged his homeland and cruelly a king who was worse than Kim Jong-un and Putin together. He decided to leave Island to become stronger. He got to the main continent and with the help of its hosts harnessed his powers by creating a coat of arms that gave him supernatural powers and the title of nobleman. Despite the presence, Theo's coat of arms was still people to us, without territories and allies, and he wandered around continent to one day save its Sistini's hometown. One day his destiny changed when he saw how the group armed soldiers harassed a girl being a real man. Tio couldn't stand it and rushed to array. Having entered into a fight with the soldiers who attacked a woman, he showed his coat of arms to make them retreat, but there the commander was not afraid of the nameless nobleman and ordered his men to attack Tio, enchanted his sword and armor on it with the help of the coat of arms and rushed at the soldiers, quickly disarmed them. He began to fight back when the soldiers surrounded him, but he managed to force them to retreat, and the girl, she was impressed. She introduced herself, a sorceress named Seleuka, and said Tio did not need his help because that her bodyguard Erwin was a superman who could use. She asks Theo where the power of Haas came from. He has a coat of arms and he replies that he created it himself to save his homeland from Haas. The force impresses the force of Ku, and she thinks that he has potential, but she also knows that he is now so weak that he does not can even manage a small village, so she decides to help him with training and encourages to ruble his sword and throws it like as if he were throwing away other meat. The demon him, but as soon as he is about to bite off, Theo somehow pierces his head, his heart, and wins. He still trembles when he stands up and then puts his hand to release the energy of chaos from the body the demon to absorb her power. Ka fiddles with his developed coat of arms and says Theo that now he is strong as a knight and can enter into a contract with one. She doesn't give him the opportunity to be a wizard, refuse her advances, and immediately demands that he swear allegiance to her loyalty. How does the sorceress Tio think that to get a cute sorceress, no such a bad deal? And then Sila cast him that now they are ready to go to fight the aristocrat who sent his soldier attack force. Comes message that a knight named Theo demands that he give him his lands and his coat of arms. When the nobleman heard that there are only 3 attackers, he laughed when they appeared. Silka told him that they are enough to defeat him. The nobleman's court magician heard that Silka is a genius and he went over to her side because the nobleman broke the contract prohibiting attacks on wizards who have not yet signed a contract with. He declared to the lord that the nobleman would lose his title as soon as news of this will reach the Association of Wizards and ordered he should immediately give Theo his coat of arms, and the land nobleman got angry and decided to take it. He took matters into his own hands and attacked Theo, but he pushed him away, and when he tried stand up, Erwin was already standing behind him with a knife at his throat. The nobleman wet himself fear and gave his coat of arms to Tio, who absorbed it. Following Silva's instructions, he took pity on the nobleman whom he had just kicked him out of the house, and Silva told him rejoice because now he is the master. He was worried about the reaction of these land's other nobles, but the old wizard volunteered to sign a contract with him so that negotiate with neighbors. Then Snare explained the current political situation to Theo. The situation on the continent was covered a long and brutal war between the 2 groups called the Alliance and Union. One day their leaders got tired of bloodshed and decided to end the war. Diplomatic marriage between their children to unite their coats of arms and create the Emperor's coat of arms once and for all will put an end to the Hasi era forever. We're delighted with this historical weddings, and Seleko was also invited, but as the bride and groom walked down the aisle, she noticed that there was chaos at the altar, rushed there and stopped a couple, and then I'm on stage to sort out the mess. But before she could do anything, Erwin, who was a bodyguard at the time the bride, grabbed her, and while she was explaining what was happening was already too late. The chaos intensified and the church suddenly became darker than my future, and from the darkness the demon lord appeared and he imprisoned the leaders of the 2 factions in the dungeon, and they used the power of their coats of arms to fight your sworn enemy. But the combined power of their coats of arms could not nothing to do against the demon lord, who killed them with one blow of his sword. The tragic death of the leaders destroyed the marriages of their children, and the 2 groups became again. Only a few months have passed since the enemies after that tragedy. Silica also went away to meet a depraved nobleman who signed a contract with her and accompanied by Erwin, who decided dedicate yourself to her to atone for your mistakes at the wedding. It was then that the soldier tried to attack her, and Theo came to her to help. She told him that most of the nobles in this area belonged to the Alliance, but she wants that he join the union because that's how it is he will be able to start his war. Theo refuses because he doesn't understand her plans, but Soa assures him that everything will be good because she is strong next to him. Understands that Theo is not created to be ruler and takes control into his own hands. She learns that all the neighboring lords, they are looking at their territory, counting that the new lord will be overthrown. It's not difficult. She entrusts Erwin patrol the borders and decides to call the cat demon to help her convey message to her friend Aisha. Shortly after this, Theo comes to her and asks why is she trying to help him. Eula replies that she is tired of the nobles who thirst for power and allow people to suffer because of her greed. She says that is a big fan the legendary hero Leon, who, as they say, he restore order in a ruined world. She believes that Theo the same qualities and ideals as legendary hero, so she decided to serve him as for herself. She just wants to prove his abilities so that the arrogant nobles do not. They limited her at every step. Several times days later, an ambitious nobleman with his army, he heads towards Theo's castle and Slot tells him that he doesn't even need it. Friend is already here. They go out into the street to greet Usha, who was once a student at the Academy of Magic, but failed the exams and now works mercenary. Aisha is very happy to see her friend, but when he finds out that the lore has she decided to serve only her high ideals, I feel sorry for him. After this, Joe and Shield and Erwin take to the front lines. Theo remains with. They all run towards the gate. The attacker is set trapped between rocks and then lightning. They are suddenly knocked out by an enemy wizard. Attacks her from behind with some kind of bow way to avoid critical hit, and seeing that the wizard was filming the invisibility spell, understands what it is. One of her classmates. He wants to take her hostage to quickly end the fight, but the Slukad is not going to give up and engages him in close combat. Both quickly exhale, and then the village comes running to help Theo because she is at a disadvantaged position. Declares that this is his battle and attacks enemy wizard. Theo manages to corner him and wound him, but the wizard does not give up and rushes at him with all her might, and meanwhile Nadira was walking, kicks the enemy's ass with its powerful hips. However, the commander of the enemy soldiers deliberately keeps his distance from her to buy time, and Shella understands his trick and decides to attack first. Instead of killing him, she attacks, ambush him, and kisses him for strangle. I'm not saying I'm jealous, but this lucky guy doesn't want to die yet. Mommy, he's choking, so he grabs her and orders his soldiers to pierce her, passing through it. Aisha lets it go and fights off the soldiers, giving the guy time run away. It seems she got attached to him and shouts at him to meet her after the battle near her. Irvine fights with the mercenaries he hired enemy noblemen. He quickly deals with them using his assassin skills. A mercenary leader uses his special ability and turns into a man of steel. Erwin can penetrate his thick skin, therefore he dodges his attacks until finds an opportunity to gouge out his eyes. An enemy nobleman decides to fight Erwin himself, but before his time attack appears Theo with captive. The enemy mage nobleman looks back and starts laughing like crazy. Then he gives in voluntarily and becomes subordinates of Theo because he understood that it's better to be with a strong magician like him than with someone else. Theo takes nobleman Lasik as his subordinate and takes away his coat of arms, and in return gives him a coat of arms subordinated. Shortly thereafter to Theo, a priestess comes from the church. Of the relationship between church and magicians seem to have a relationship between Republicans and Democrats, and Sluka hates them so much that he doesn't. Even the priestess opens the door. However, Theo heard that priests often treat those in need people, so he wants to at least listen. He opens the door for the guests. To the big one displeasure, Slukana introduces herself as a priestess Priscilla and promises to do everything possible to support him in his fight against chaos. Meanwhile, the conquest of the Teo region goes smoothly thanks to the help of Lassi and his Maga. Seleucus tells Theo that he can expand his holdings, that he can't. Interesting because he wants to free she has her homeland from the tyranny of the nobility. Detailed plan. But now she thinks that first he needs to choose a villager's last name. Suggests that Theo take the surname Kanara, in honor of a famous hero from his homeland who was betrayed by the current family. The ruler of Theo likes this idea and the village. She begins to develop a plan, forces Theo to leave the union and join in the alliance, but the old wizard tells her that Theo is just nominal head and controls everything. Seleucus, he becomes ashamed that she took credit for the lord and she goes apologize, but Erwin interrupts their meeting to report what happened in the city. Natural disaster. They rush to the city where the building suddenly caught fire. While Seleucus treats the victims, he rushes put out the fire, but suddenly the villager feels a same chilling aura as on the day the great wedding tragedy and the demon Lord Fire has appeared. The demon takes the form of a human and Theo Fire rushes at him recklessly. The demon is immune to physical attacks, and Theo loses, so the villager asks Aishu to distract the demon while she prepares to defeat him. She uses powerful spell to attack the demon with a water cannon, and he responds with a fire cannon. The attack of the villagers turns out to be a breath stronger, and she imprisons the demon in water sphere, but it was the worst decision that she could accept because she was a demon. Suddenly exploded after death and scattered silica fragments everywhere. I thought it was the end for her, but Theo showed up the last moment and closed it from the debris. She lost consciousness, and when she woke up there was a shell next to her. As soon as I found out that Theo is still dealing with in the aftermath of the explosion, she rushed to him, but it turned out that his wounds were more serious than her magnifying glass. Then gave him the first help and thanked him for what he did, protected her. She told at the elder the wizard scolded her for what I was grateful to her for everything and said that she showed him the right way. Soon the king of the region declared war on Theo because of his growing strength and presence, advised him to collect under his own the banner of all independent nobles to fight back when the day of war came. Theo I never received a response from the nobles, and he had only his old allies. At night the people he had recently saved from the fire demon came to his aid and declared that they were ready to fight and die. Theo doubted his master. It is worth it should they be allowed to fight, but Silgan must respect the wishes of his people. Theo agreed with her and used his coat of arms to create a holographic image in the sky flag and told his men that they must fight with him. The flag dropped on his allies, and they had it on their chests, a mark indicating that they are protected. His master. The next day the war begins, and the army of Theo, still significantly inferior in numbers, he bravely leads his royal army soldiers into battle, and each uses his skills to defeat the enemy army. The king decides to send his people to the front reserve forces, seeing that his army retreats, but then unexpectedly on the battlefield independent lords emerge to help Theo. They surround the king and attack, forcing him to flee from all sides. Silica relays a message to Theo and he orders his troops to finish off the remaining enemy soldiers. After that the battle is won. Then the servant comes to Lady Marian, to the head of the alliance, and the bride with tragic wedding to talk about. Marian heard that Theo was accepted into the alliance. Theo has conquered the southern region, and she asks Selek give her time to think about it. She believes that the presence of Theo Licca there will be useful for the party, but her courtier the wizard asked, who is also foster father Seliakino, does not trust people who are like that, easily change sides in politics. Marian states that she may have to fight against Theo and asks if he is ready. He let his daughter die, but he not against. He says Selek that her the request to accept Theo into the alliance is rejected. Dan asks her to ask her lord give up the title and run for Seleka. Furious at his answer, but standing up confidently tells him and Marian that they will meet on the battlefield. She will immediately heading towards Elvalaris, Ulmarina, but he refuses even meet her because she left him for another. He asks his master for his courtier. Baga conveyed to Luke that he did not is going to enter into an alliance with Theo because that there is no benefit to him in this. Silico returns empty-handed and reports Theo and the rest that Marian and the deposed the king and his army will soon attack them will be 5 times more than they have. Theo states that even if they lose then will give them battle and his allies are ready to go soon. The Union forces will follow him to the end, arrive at their castle, and the mercenaries under the command of the Aishi cannot harm them. No harm. Knights Unions use plasma crossbows to break through the wall. The castle and went away. She rushes into close combat, kills several knights by repelling them plasma arrows, but when she retreats, one arrow hits her in the vital and important place of strength. Rushes to her friend and cries, thinking that she will die, but then priestess Priscilla appears and returns her to light. While she heals her wounds, Luca runs outside to help. His own Theo soldiers have already taken control of the situation. And when the Knights of the Union break through the gates and enter, he orders the second ones to be closed. Gate and then attacks the knights with all sides. Saw that they were surrounded. The knights retreat, but then Theo gets bad news about the death of one of their own. He learns that even loyal allies Lasik was defeated and retreated, but it was part of his plan to lure his ex the king and his soldiers a narrow mountain path so that he could defeat his enemies. One king is in a panic because of Lasik continues to kill his soldiers and orders them to retreat, but Erwin and other mercenaries seized control of the battlefield, forcing the king to remain on place. He decides to fight with Lasik face to the face, and they enter into the classical sword fight. King they pushed aside one of his swords. They rush at each other with full force to deliver the finishing blow, and Lasik emerges victorious By killing the king returns to the castle with the prisoner soldiers, and Theo congratulates him on victory and then says that he must take command of new troops on. He knows himself that they can win several battles, but win the war impossible, and their next strategy agree with the alliance forces about retreat. Still, Yuka explains details, saying that the only thing that will convince the alliance to retreat if Theo will renounce his title and leave the country. They have already agreed to this, and that's why Lasik killed a former king will become the next ruler of the South region. Saiku doesn't like that Theo will have to give everything, but he replies that he will still have his reputation and see Luke next to him, so that he can return at any time. However, when Celica heads to negotiate at the end of the war, Hera says that they will retreat until they get Theo's head. Comes back and informs everyone about the conditions, but everyone refuses to sacrifice Theo. At the same time, Marion and the knights learn that Theo offered a peace treaty, but the knights refuse to believe that it was the right decision, and they want to win Theo and his army to save Marion's face, worried that Count Veller might attack at them from behind if they send too many soldiers on the front line. But the knights, we are sure that he will not attack because refuse to help the village earlier. She says knights to do whatever they want, and the next day most of her army attacks the castle of Theo, and she remains with 100 guards. It was a moment which Veller and his soldiers were waiting for, attacked on Marion. When she was least protected, allies immediately retreat to protect your mistress, and Luca is so happy that they are safe that can't resist the urge to go hunting for Theo. Everyone is happy about the victory, and later they find out that Aquila survived thanks to healing Priscilla. Later, T holds a meeting to let everyone know that the allies retreated after suffering heavy losses, and now they can relax. Steely Beach says that they should thank Veller but he under no circumstances will not become their ally, and perhaps they'll have to fight him next time. And as if by magic, Veller shows up at the meeting with he greets them as a court magician who thanks him for his help, and Wheeler says there is no point in talking about it, worrying because he wanted to for a long time. Marion Seleko also apologizes to take revenge in front of him for breaking up with him contract, but he replies that now I must return to him, and he will forget everything what happened in the past. He suggests Theo becomes the king of the South and offers him union. Lasik and other encouraging with him will considers him just a weakling, but his wizard says that it is necessary accept him as a subordinate because it will be profitable for Villa to accept Theo as his knight, and tells him and Selek so that they would quickly move into the castle. He leaves, and Theo hands over his territory army affection, which promises remain faithful to him and come to help when you need. Priscilla wants to go with Theo, but he tells her ask Vila about this because now he is the main one. While they discuss the future, Seleka blushes, realizing that she is falling in love. Theo finally they reach the castle of Vila, where he assigns Theo to his guards. Aleku sends to the wizards who serve him. After meeting the red-haired, the wizard tells Eselki that today she will be present in the evening, a reception in honor of a prince from another country. T also comes to the reception at night to greet Prince Milzu, who gets excited when he hears someone's talk about ambitions. He heard that Theo renounced his title from the lands for the sake of one wizard, and not openly respects, when he heard that Lasik, who now rules the South, just performing the duties of a king, while Theo he changed his a little opinion. Later, Theo cleaned up in the library. Silico at him a story about witches who can summon spirits and demons. Silica explained that witches are different from wizards, about those who are connected with the world. Demons are called black witches, and they're the opposite of white witches. She told Theo about the super people who turned into immortal vampires and infinitely regenerating werewolves who fought the demon lore in the past. Having heard about powerful people, Theo began to complain that his people with the motherland is completely powerless, but Selika said that one day he will definitely save him, and then Villa will call him who introduced them to my elder white witches. Villa orders Theo go into the forest of eternal darkness and meet the werewolves who suddenly left their homes. Hall explains that the forest is a territory vampires, and it seems between them and werewolves are not all smooth sailing. They go into the forest, but with hostility. The tuned werewolves refuse talk to them about what happened. A talking bat suddenly appears. The mouse tells the werewolves that Theo suggests the vampire king and asks to let him through. Turnover is not furious about the vampire king and demands that the queen and her be returned to them daughters, but the bat ignores them and he flies away. follows them and promises werewolves that will do everything possible to help them. Soon they get to the Vampire King's castle, where he reports that the werewolf queen was kidnapped. He didn't meet a black witch named Yana is going to interfere in their battle and declares that it is no longer a lie. Neither werewolves nor nobility. King Vampire said that now all our nobles, those who bear his coat of arms, are his enemies, and he wants immerse the world in has with which he once fought. He claims that if the nobles will unite and create a seal the emperor, they will forever banish the Hassan's superhumans, will lose their powers. King Vampires will become an ordinary person, and this is not what the style of Yuka wants. He thinks that he was responsible for the emergence of the king demons during the wedding tragedy, but her words hurt the Vampire King. Theo, I'm ready to fight him, but for a vampire, it's not interesting, and he leaves, but before that tells them where the queen is. Werewolves Tio and Selika rush to where the werewolf queen fights the black one, the witch Yana, to protect her daughters. The witch wants to kill the queen and sacrifice her to summon the king demons, and she almost did it. Lotto gets there before she can kill the queen and engage in battle with a witch who becomes furious upon learning that the Vampire King left her to fight with them alone. She thinks that they are her not equal and sends his gargoyles so that they would fight with them. Selika uses lightning magic, but this not enough to stop the gargoyles. Tio defeats the one who attacked him and then immediately goes to rescue Selek. Meanwhile Mine is preparing its the last attack and directs his charged Nimbus 3.0 towards Theo. Force will try to block it with his own magical barrier, but the attack goes through. Theo barely makes it through it. To protect himself, he uses his coat of arms to enchant Ursor and repel the attack, as a result of which he ends up on the roof. Werewolf Knin sees his chance and attacks Yen after the formation, but this was just a feat. And her true the goal was to free their captives. The witch attacks the daughters with grapevines and even summons gargoyles to help, but the queen quickly deals with it with them before attacking her. Diana tries to escape using his broom, and she attacks the werewolf queen to stop her, who still manages to leave deep scratches on her legs, and Theo catches her when she falls. The queen's daughters also transform to fight the witch, but she dodges them and also from the attacks of Luke and runs away through the hole in the ceiling. The girls immediately to her mother, but she got to a lot of damage for her to survive. Asks Theo to take her daughters outside, and then quickly dies. Theo does his thing promise and takes him back to the clan together with his dead body. There is no turnover. They are arranging the funeral of their queen, whose the body turns into the energy of chaos and scatters among her children. New leader werewolves thanks Theo for saving him sisters and the return of the mother's body and swears allegiance to him. Then Theo take charge of the king's castle. Vampires and talks to the servant about how cooperation with forest dwellers will benefit them. To the benefit, however, after the battle with the black as a witch, he realized how weak he was and declared that he must become stronger at any cost. Seleka promised that they will grow together within, and were soon joined by werewolf sisters, who have now become Theo's maids. Sue, after this, Villa invited to the annual meeting of the nobility. He didn't want to go, but he had no choice, and red-haired sorceress Margarita assured that everyone will admire him. The recent victory over Marion Villa was not unsure of this, because my ex-fiancé Marion won't like it, and he changed it an awkward topic by talking about a birthday. Margaret, she was offended when he asked. She heard about this and Silico left the room, and other wizards saw this, and I realized what was happening. It turns out Villa learned the art of relationships from myself. Leonardo DiCaprio breaks up with everyone their sorceress when they turn 25 years. Margaret does not want to leave because that he loves him, and Seleka goes to talk to him via on her behalf. He thinks that it would be it's wrong to leave Margaret with you. She must have it forever, the opportunity to start a family and live your own life. Life of the Villa commands the village prepare for the celebration of the day birth, and then moves on to the topic annual meeting of the nobility. He says Seal that she will go with him. Tio and Lassie, who he explains what will happen at the meeting. Vissel Rossini, ruler of the city where he lives. Tio and he wants them to meet there at Sue and Margaret. She looks a little sad because she will soon retire. For a moment he forgets about it while passionately dancing with Villa no Co. When dancer Mu ends again spoils, while Margaret and Villa Teo and S.E. Luca are talking to guests, discussing how hard it is for them to be together. Tio, inspired by what I just saw the performance, drags Luca onto the dance floor, but he can't even dance, and that's Luke have to teach him right there. Later Prince Za approaches him and calls him his great clown. Tio says that he take it as a compliment that he could entertain the prince, who didn't like his answer. He calls him outside and challenges Milza to a mock duel. Violently attacks Theo, but he continues to block his attacks. Milza calls him a coward who lacks courage to answer, but he is surprised when Theo counterattacks. This is not enough to confuse the experienced prince, and he knocks Theo off his feet before telling him so, that he would stop defending himself. Claims that such stupid nobles see as the reason why the epic chaos is tightened, and everyone declares that must be full of ambition to kill his enemy and become emperor. T rejects his way of life and is nice to gets furious, but leaves. D4 tell the boat that his actions are in the future will cost the lives of his allies. Scylla comes to support Theo. He tells him that he must go honestly his way and she will support him whatever he chooses. It's time soon go to meet with the allies of Velar, and his minions also have plans to seize territories that lie between them and the meeting place. They get to the neighboring kingdom where some nobles switch to them side and others remain with the king. Lasik leads the army and Sluka asks let Theo deal with one from influential nobles, and Milza sets out alone to when he breaks right into the king's right hand, the enemy's castle, and orders the nobleman and his people to give him their coats of arms and lands. He gives them 3 days to pack and promises kill anyone who stays longer. The nobleman laughs at him thinking that he crazy and orders his people kill him. For surrounded by enemies, and when the nobleman attacks him, he easily disarmed before he can ask for mercy. The rest of the nobles attack him, but Nusli quickly deals with them and absorbs them. He leaves the energy of chaos in his coat of arms on witness and orders him to be quiet. Give the earth. Lasik when it comes returning to camp, he thinks like Theo deal with the nobleman to whom he must confront. Theo after long discussion with Se Luca about how it's better to enter the territory nobleman with whom everyone must fight in the city. They heard that he defeated the Knights Union and follow him. When he goes to meet a nobleman, Lavino tells him that no is going to surrender to the Union troops, asks him to back off. Theo says that even if he comes back empty-handed, Lasik and his army will soon take over the city by force. He asks Avalanche to fight with him outside the city so that his people did not get caught in the crossfire of the Avalanche. So wise experienced ruler agrees to Theo's proposal because he cannot interfere with the Union troops. His people cannot seize his territory. They want him to fight alone and convince him that he will follow him wherever, no matter where he went. He would be touched by them devotion and says Ladvinsky loyalty to the Union. He thinks a little and decides to go over to the Union's side in order to he continued to rule his people. Openly admires Theo, saying that he has great ideals and that everyone a noble man should be like his. Ladvinsky title and lands on city flags, the flags of the Union. Nan Salika Pure exclaims that Theo has exceeded her expectations, forcing Ladvinsky. This news reaches Velar. He is glad that they won without major losses thanks to Theo and Mills, who alone dealt with the battle. Soon after that they come to the annual meeting. The nobility of the Union Nan Theo feels are not in their element. The aristocrats were divided into factions, and some of them believe Vilu became a hero with Pasha of the kingdom at that time, while others think it is harmed the peace of the continent. Soon after that comes to the party Alexis, leader Unions and groom, whose wedding ended in tragedy. He looks like handsome, but his looks are enough to drive all the girls crazy. Alexis greets Villa, thanks Selek for saving his life during the wedding, and switches all his attention to Theo, declaring that he admires him achievements. Later when Theo is on vacation, Alexis comes to him in his room to talk alone. Theo, surprised that the leader of the Union came to him, but answers, what does Alexis admire about Alexis? Heard that he grew up on the street and became ruler of the South, but refused all for my girlfriend. He cries, saying that he also loves very much Marion, is ready to give up his title and land to be with her, but she don't give up on your path. Alexis claims that he wants aristocrats from all over the continent united and peacefully created the Emperor's coat of arms, which forever will rid the world of Hostiope. Him words and promises to do everything possible to make his dreams come true and help him reunite with Marion. Alexis thanks him and asks him to find him happiness before leaving. When Irvin was about to get into the carriage, he noticed that they were attacked and warned everyone of the snare. Protected Alexis with the magical wallet. Then the werewolf twins started deal with the attacker Theo and others. The guards also held back them. When one of the attackers fell, Theo noticed Rossini's mark on his head and said that now he is just puppet. He realized that the attackers, they didn't come for Alex, but for him, and now he fought for his life. Luca almost G-blah from the enemy's blow, but the demon cat had defeated Derwin. Reported Luke that while he was dealing with the enemy, he fought the killer with snipers, who managed to escape. Sue. After that Alexis left still. Venya Theo knew himself in the attempted murder that the real target was him, and his allies said that now Rosie's days are not numbered since Alexis was involved in this. She believed that at least he would be expelled from the Union and they will soon have a chance to make their own. The next day the Mouvetier told Villa about the assassination attempt and that Alexis, still in love with Marion, he was glad to hear about the second one and told the story of how Alexis and Marion fell in love with each other. They studied at the academy and one day met. When Alexis admired the beauty of the stones on the road at the moment when he saw Marion, he fell in love with her so much that rediscovered the power of attraction. He sent her hundreds of love letters and created a beautiful composition in her garden grew before she finally started pay attention to it. As a sign thanks, Marion went to the ball masquerade where some stranger tried to hug her too. Yes, she became indignant and became aggressive when Alexis came to protect his girlfriend. He with one blow, he knocked him off his feet. Marion was touched by his actions and took him to their room, where they learned that their families are at odds with each other. Realizing that they can't be together, they kissed and Marion left his life forever. I was worried about this and the servants for a long time. They took her to Alexis, who taught her to sing. Poor children. She confessed to him her feelings and stated that despite feud between their families they ever get married. Villa says, that's all history and at that time he supported them. The marriage took place soon after meeting of the nobility and they first expelled Rossi not from the Union. Then one of the nobles' people accused Veller of what he started fight with Marion and reduced the chances of peaceful solution. Theo explained that it's his fault, that he started the fight and Villeray just came to his aid. I don't know, I could argue with Willem for a long time, and the decision it was decided to start a war against the Union. After this Alexis turned to the nobility and declared that he is their leader only because it was like that with his father. He thinks that is no longer suitable for this role and wants so that a new leader would be elected. Immediately Veller becomes the new leader thanks to its military power, but refuses promotion because he doesn't want a cousin died in battle. Taking advantage of this, and Merrick takes over as the new leader. No one can resist him, and the first thing he does is stop the war and resumes peace talks with Alliance. Most people are happy with the decision, but not Alexis, because he knows that Marcos wants to marry Marion. What to ensure peace? Marion finds out about this and refuses from the peace treaty and orders the court wizard Albus is getting ready before the war. She is upset by this decision because he still loves Alexis and thinks that now their love is no longer safe. Sue, after that to Valaris army, Marion is already on their territories and they can attack at any time. Moment Mills and Seleka tell him that he should not follow a peaceful policy Union and immediately counterattack. Abel refuses to do this. He doesn't. I like Lika's persistence and he fires her and Tio and then drives her away. Nobleman Seleka and Tio return to its territory in the dark forest, but she's still. I'm also upset that will ignored her advice and now they can't. To avoid war in order to raise it, Tio's mood suggests going to journey through the forest, but they only see cold, condemning looks of people. They continue to travel through the dark forest fighting monsters and exploring unknown places. Will start raining soon and they hide in the hollow of a tree where Theo covers the girl with a blanket so that they talk more warmly about how good they feel together. And Theo confesses to Silkat, worried that she might be gone forever. She assures to remain the sorceress of the villa, that he will never leave him, and so on hugs her saying how dear she is to him. Linden can't hold back any longer and confesses her feelings to him and Theo. He replies that he loves her too and they start kissing. From the other side, a war broke out between Marion and her neighbor Villas, and Milza came to help. He evades of his own free will plasma crossbows of the Knights of the Alliance, and Vadiano destroys an entire squad of Marion. Surprised to see such a strong warrior, and at a military council decides to violate the peace contract using artificial house poison to capture the enemy fortress. The Knights are stunned by her decision, but she claims they can't afford it to lose this war. She sends Asa create Hasa poison in the sea and servants orders to transmit the message to LZ, creates Hasa poison and directs it. With the wind, poison envelops the enemy fortress and makes all soldiers incapable of fighting. Soon Marion and her knights capture fortress and kill all the soldiers, as well their commander is then set on fire. Fortress Milza watches over this one-sided massacre from afar and finds her funny. Suddenly approached him servants of the Morena and invite you to meet with. He accepts the invitation, but orders the servants to bring him. Marianne Miles decided to leave the villa because he has no ambition to unite continent, and now he wants to support Marianne. Soon she comes to him and asks him to support the unification continent. Miles away asks her about relationship with Alexis, and he understands that Marianne is lying when she says that everything. Of course, he tells her to join to the union only on one condition: if she will sleep with him tonight. Marianne agrees, saying that will be only for one night, and what is she will never belong to him in spite of everything. Miles for not against, and Marianne gives herself to him for the sake of her ambitions, and now it officially belongs to on the street. Shortly after this, Marianne is ready to go to the territory of Velero, tells her that Miles behind killed his father, became king of his country, and officially decided to unite with the Viller Union to prepares to meet her, and calls all of its allies to join his wizards. Notice the militia fleet, but Veller senses something is wrong and orders them to prepare for battle, and he himself goes to the poor. In the poor, he meets Margaret, who tells him that Miles went over to Marina's side and even killed his father because he stood up for him. Villar's paths don't believe his ears and understands that he will win this battle. It is not easy, and he orders his ships attack Milla's fleet, which quickly counterattack and attacks ships Villa's, killing his soldiers. Captain orders his men to break the steering wheel and pour oil on the ship. After that they abandon the ship, and the captain sets it on fire so that Mills would die. To this is completely useless, and Mills kills the captain after a short fight and then runs away the burning ship. Meanwhile, the wizards Miller with a giant lens. Milla's ships are set on fire one after another. When Mills comes out of the sea, he decides retreat, because to date his troops, too many elves, have already been killed. Returning to the palace, Vila realizes that if he defeats Milzu, then the alliance forces will lose half of their power, and he plans to join the battle personally. Margaret wants to join to him, claiming that he was sweet for once killed her entire clan. Soon after, one of allies of Villa arrive at the scene with a giant warship and deals a crushing blow to Milla's fleet. He understands that to win a naval battle impossible, and orders his people disembark immediately. On the other side, the Marin troops defeated one of Devio's strongest allies. Soon Mills and other allies join her, and Marin announces that the real battle, the Viking princess, is about to start on his side. At night leaves a huge fleet of warships at the castle of Villa, and he understands that now he won't be able to win. He decides to fight to the end and orders his wizards to contact with all the nobles who were with him, obey and order them to surrender. He prepares for battle with the help of Margaret and finally admits that he loves her too, and they can die together. Giant warship fights Lot Morena, consisting of 1,000 ships, but despite no matter how hard they try, they can't win to destroy as many enemies as possible. One man blows up a giant ship, but it doesn't do much damage. Enemy fleet enemies attack the castle Villa from all sides, and Marion leading the attack from the front. Are about to Villa, and Margaret will break into his castle, ready to meet them face to face. Margaret uses her last spell and envelops in fire. It burns enemy ranks, and Villa destroys everyone. Margaret quickly had enemies on her way. Energy is running out, but Villa is in a hurry to her aid, and she retreats to use all the remaining strength to self-destruction. After the explosion, it turns to ashes, and Villa is killed. Grief throws itself at the enemy soldiers. Caring for the protection of Marion, orders his knights to shoot at him from plasma crossbows, but he blocks them. She launched a combined attack with her coat of arms. Surprised by this, Anne decides to talk to cousin for the last time. Villa welcomes her with open arms, hugs, and Marion hugs him. When he says that he gives up, he asks her to go along the path she has chosen and wishes that she was able to marry Alexis and once upon a time found happiness. With these words he dies, and his coat of arms is broken. The soldiers go in a rage. Suicidal castle. She goes to the throne room, where one of the wizard of the villa tells her that she captured the castle, but that's all anyway, everyone will be faithful to the villa. Then she kills himself by drinking poison, and the other wizard offers to heal the wounded on the side. Marion gives away the coat of arms and the lands, the villa LSU, and she herself leads her army to conquer the whole continent. Soon news of Villa's death reaches his allies, and Tio breaks his heart. Hearing about this, all the Villa's allies gather and form a separate group called Agreement to avenge his death and prevent the alliance from conquering the continent. Everyone thinks that Lasik should become the next leader, but he answers that everything still obeys Theo, and instead the aristocrats propose his candidacy. They don't see Theo as a leader and argue with Lassie calm because of his decision. Theo acts forward and tells everyone that he will prove that he worthy of being a leader in the coming battle so that everyone accepts him. The aristocrats decide to elect Lasik as their leader until Theo will prove that he is better than him. With another side's Mills is trying to win aristocrats under the command of the villa, but they refuse to obey him and resist with all their might. When one of the wizards sits on the throne, Marian comes to him with a message and asks to return the territories that once captured Vila. The wizard asks Mills to be careful with the power of their enemy, but he doesn't like it when someone talks with him from above. Soon Nelsey leads his army against enemies and defeats them. Brother Mills, who commands the army, decides to retreat and lures Mills to follow him to where he is. Lasik is waiting with his army. Lasik and Milfor, they really want to fight with each other and rush into battle without waiting for their armies. They exchange powerful blows and soon their armies also enter the battle. Lasik received several injuries, but was also cute. He also suffered and he realized that only he is strong enough to fight. He understands that now they are at a disadvantage and decides to retreat from the battlefield. On the other side of Marian reached Theo and she's territory, regrets not letting him join Union before. She thinks that now there is no strong army, but still does not want to fight with him and his wife despite that they are her sworn enemies. Marian laughs, wants to talk to Theo one last time before the battle and asks his wizard give him a message. Soon Theo receives a message and wonders about what does Marian want to talk about because they know everything anyway. You'll have to fight. She notices that maybe that's why she liked him. The meeting was personal and not political. Theo understands and agrees to meet with her because he also has something for her. I also want to tell the village for the last time to see my father, because despite the fact that he is an idiot, is still her father. They enter Marian's tent and sit down, hugs Dad before they start conversation. Marian shakes Theo's hand and says that she has heard a lot of good things about him. He replies that he has heard many unpleasant things, rumors about her fighting style, and says, what a decent meeting it seemed to him. He tells a completely different story. I met Alexis once and still do loves her with all his heart. Theo wants that they were together again, but Marianne brushes off his words, saying that Viller also told her the same thing before. With her death, she declares that she is with Alexis were to know and the only one away to end the era of chaos, to conquer the continent by force of arms. She ready to shed as much blood as will be required and tells Theo that he doesn't want to fight with him, but will return this territory by any means necessary. On this, their meeting ends and returns to his castle. Theo says that Marianne still loves Alexis, wants to bring them together again. At the table, he replies that a miracle is needed for this and he intends to commit it. She is struck by words of what Theo does next. He completely confuses her, kisses her in front of all his soldiers, and Silica blushes, saying that it wasn't the most suitable place and time. Theo, he replies that he kissed her on purpose in the eyes of their soldiers who don't want to fight for the love of your master. The soldiers start chanting and shouting. Understands that Theo wanted to force Marianne to think about her love for Alexis. His trick works and Marianne gets upset, but then she gets news that one of the friends of the villa had broken Viking forces and she has to immediately retreat. Theo finds out about this and Silka tells him that since they are no longer in the zone, it's time for him to return to combat homeland and take it under his control. Thinks it's too easy, but Selfie says that if he wants to help Alexis and Marian reunite, his status and power must be equal to their status and authorities. So she wants him to return his homeland, become the leader of his allies and force the entire continent to recognize him. Theo agrees to her proposal and Lassie tells about this, but he thinks, what about those soldiers that Theo has? It's almost impossible to beat Rossini with a Lassie. He likes the plan and thinks he will win Rossini, and having conquered his homeland, Theo will be able to prove to the nobles that he is worthy of being their leader. Soon Theo returns to the homeland of the Sistine with a servant and several its closest allies, including Irvina Ishu. Moon landing, they discover that Rossini has arranged for Stein and Hoss so that people where they were disunited and easy to oppress. Wants to put an end to this as soon as possible, and so he decides to go straight to city. Rossini Salika invented how announce the arrival of Theo to the entire island. Russia will of course send its troops to fight him, but it will only play into their hands on hand because oppressed to fight Rossini. Soon they get to the city and split into two groups of Theo, Salika and Ashel go to restaurant to have a snack, but there they are meet the Black Witch Yana. Salika and Yana, they recognize each other and it turns out that Yana's boyfriend is Rossini's eldest son Salvador. He confronts his girlfriend's enemies, but when he finds out that in front of him is Theo, everyone is afraid the situation is becoming personal. Theo declares that he will defeat the family. Rossini will liberate his homeland, and Salvador tells him that he will try to use his coat of arms and makes people in restaurants swear allegiance. Theo tells his faithfulness to him friends that they need to run because all who accepted the coat of arms of El Salvador lost Rasu, that he doesn't want to harm them. Silica uses magic flash to blind everyone, and that gives them a chance run away. Everyone meets at the appointed place. And Erwin tells Theo what he saw. Knights who searched for him all over Silica tells the city that their mission is the spread of Theo's name has already been crowned success, and now they must go to neighboring cities and villages to gather people for the rebellion against Rossini. It's easier said than done, because the residents are used to being patient the bullying of Rossini's soldiers. They refuse to help Theo in his rebellion, saying that all who tried to rebel against Rossini were killed, and they prefer to be on his side. Bringing Theo's victims leave empty-handed and say to my friends that in Sistine, it's always like this. It was the Rossini family that ruled their citizens by instilling fear and despair in them, and there is no easy way to change this over time. El Salvador collected a small army to kill Theo and sent an assassin to warn the villagers so that they did not enter into an alliance with him. The next day Theo reaches the village, but the locals meet him with hostility, and they say that the neighboring village was burned down because he was there before. They refuse to listen to him even when he says that the Rossi family is to blame for everything and demand that he clean up before they do. Called the Knights, Theo takes his friends away, and they think that maybe no one will help them. Will help in their revolution. Silica offers go to Theo village because they are there. They will definitely understand. His silence tells them everything what they want to know, but Theo doesn't care. Takes them to his village to show them what he had to go through. Notices his childhood friend Rebecca at the borders of the village, and she runs to him but stops at a safe distance. He asks her to gather all the residents' villages because he wants to talk to all. Theo tells the residents' villages about the past. Luca learns from Rebecca that Theo's father built in the village of Tania a warehouse with which he helped people evade high taxes on someone reported him, and the Russian soldiers, they killed him so that others would learn a lesson. The villagers didn't even resist, so Theo was angry with them for a long time and left from the village, but now he says that's all it is in the past. That he asks the residents, although will they live forever under the heel of Rosie, and no one asks them to brag against him. Answers, and Theo decides to leave, but Rebecca stops him and asks at least visit his father's grave. Theo agrees and says this to Luke and the rest to wait for him. Rebecca continues to cheerfully talk about how he rose through the ranks and claims he can beat Rossini, but Theo asks her to stop because she's not doing well. He knows she works for Rossini and asks how they intimidate her. She replies that she is not. They intimidated me, but simply offered me a job in the city. Rebecca does not feel guilty about it that she betrayed Theo, but he pities her because who knows how hard it is to resist them, the oppressor. He tries to convince her that if everyone joins him then they will win, but she does not agree, and he asks her to tell the villagers to they ran because he was sure that Rossini will punish them. Theo goes alone his father's grave knowing that his enemies are waiting there, and Rebecca runs back to the village where works Luca trying to convince everyone to join them. She says that Theo knew it was a trap but went there to protect them. She asks them to help him, but this is not enough to convince them. But then Rebecca comes running and asks everyone help Theo by reminding him that Rossini didn't have them will forgive even if they surrender to those in time. Theo goes to his father's grave where he's Salvador and his soldiers are waiting for them. They shoot at him with bows, but Irvin protects. Silver asked him and Werewolf Gemini go with Theo, but Salvador doesn't think they represent for them. Suddenly the villagers are a threat, come to Theo's aid, and he thanks them before creating their flag and bless the villagers with his power. El Salvador also uses his abilities to win in battle. Residents' villages hide behind cover to protect themselves from enemy arrows and throw. They use silica and Aquila stones in them, their strength to defeat the enemies in pentacle combinations. Erwin fights with Killer. Theo collides with Salvador and breaks his sword, but the soldiers come to helping his commander and Theo succeeds. Theo is surrounded by enemies and cannot escape. Move on, but Rebecca suddenly grabs Salvador to stop him. Theo asks her to let go, but she doesn't, and Salvador stabs her with a hidden dagger. Theo in a rage he defeats the soldiers surrounding him and rushes at Salvador, who is trying run away, but dies right at his father's grave. Theo the soldiers run away seeing that the commander is killed. Theo runs up to the child, but she dies in his arms and he is very upset. Even though he won the fight, the effect of the battle spreads across the blue, and in a short period of time goes several revolts of Rossini and the sons gather to discuss this, and they understand that if they can't cope with the situation will soon get even worse. Rossini orders his sons collect 500 soldiers to immediately suppress the rebellion because he does not want to lose another son because of unpreparedness. His eldest son is sent to suppress the uprising and avenging Salvador. Rossini still enraged and vows to ruin Theo's life for that he killed his son with another side killer working for El Salvador, still hunting for Erwin to the black, which Yana finds revenge on him, and the killer learns about his mission, says that finding Erwin alone, it will be difficult because with him it's always Gemini werewolves. Heard about them, Yana comes up with a plan and assures the killer that will be able to take away Gemini so that she calmly fought her enemy, also wants to kill werewolves, and then Theo and village because they discussed it that way over time the number of people who obey Theo grows up, and Shayla teaches them how to fight Theo. I'm glad that more and more people are rising up against it. Rossini and he plans to build then a castle in the village so they could rule there peacefully. Silica tells him that for there's still a lot of time for this spot. Here's Irvi reports that Rossini's second son brought Theo is leading his huge army here towards them when they stand on the battlefield. Erwin and Gemini see their deadliest enemies. They see Luke that they must leave immediately, and she asks them to be. Erwin cautiously fights the killer, who is as strong as he is, but his knives poison, and this takes Erwin out of bounds. He continues to block it, attacks and lubricates his blade with poison. They continue to fight like ninjas, and in the end, Erwin manages to wound the killer with a knife. The killer loses his balance and Erwin deals him a fatal blow, but he too is wounded by a poison knife, and they both Gemini fall. Turnover do not fight with Yana, who summoned the demon to fight them. They attack the demon, but the demon and his barrier cannot be broken through counterattack and surround them with fire. They can't find a way to ring attack the demon, but decide to use combo move to attack Yan. Well, they turn into wolves and jump on the barrier and soar into the sky to attack the wood. She dodges the first blow. Another Wolf wounds her in the back, forcing her retreat. Demon disappears when Yana runs away, and the twins run to Erwin and they find him unconscious. They see that he is poisoned and they are afraid that he will die, but here Priscilla appears and says that no, lets him die and heals him with his sign. Theo looks at the leader enemy forces and tells his soldiers that if they kill him then the power of Russia will not, he will disappear. He will raise his flag and protects his soldiers and villagers. Rossini the younger also endows his soldier with the cursed power of his sign, and the battle begins. Theo fights Rossini the youngest and kills him, which is certain will lead to PC or Junior attacks him, and Theo continues to defend himself, gains the upper hand in battle and wounds the Russians, the younger knocking down his feet. His soldiers, they try to save him, but Theo is easy with them. The younger one copes, gets up and attacks, realizing that Theo from the very beginning wanted him exhausted, will run him and kill. Finishing the battle, Theo's soldiers rejoice in the victory, and he asks the sect to force the survivors' enemy soldiers surrender. In this moth Yana drops down on them from the sky to kill Theo is suicide, and she inflicts the most powerful blow, but the Seljuka reacts quickly and responds with his most powerful spell. Their attacks neutralize each other in the sky, and Yana falls to the ground and is captured. Rossini learns of his son's death and understands that having lost the battle, he is ready to surrender to Theo, but wants his survivor to survive. Son of Rusil survived at any cost. Rusil states that he will negotiate with Theo and will try to prove that it will be Sistine. Theo is useful to him, and the people with his soldiers arrives at the castle, and Ruforce goes out to meet him. Ruforce declares that he will surrender if they do. Lives were saved by serving his family, and Theo replies that he and his father will die, and all the wealth accumulated by their family and the allies will select the Ruforces. Tries to convince him to leave it in alive as it can help manage Sistina, but Theo refuses. Instead, he wants to save his life so that people loyal to the Rossini family did not take revenge. Rusil agrees to his conditions and swears allegiance to Theo, delighting his people and Selyuk. Later, Selyuk interrogates Yana to find out her motives. She believes that it was she who summoned the demon lore in the time of the great wedding tragedy, but thinks she doesn't have enough strength to. Yana refuses to do this alone, answer, and instead lunges at her like a wild cat and then rolls on the floor and laughs. Sue. After that, in the castle of Theo, the messenger from the magical world arrives. Academy that claims to be real. The culprit of the great wedding tragedy, there was Yana. They want to execute her, and her both thinks it's suspicious because they didn't have time to do a thorough investigation. The messenger praises Theo for that he took control of the Sistine, and says that the Magic Academy accepts him as the new ruler and generously rewards him for catching the Black One witches. After this, messenger goes to the execution of Yana, who the guards tie him to a pole and set him on fire. Her, but she just laughs, shouting that everything they just use it and throw it away, and they won't need her anymore. Declares that he won't die so easily and sacrifices his life to summon the demon lord. Around her begins chaos gathers, and soon appears the demon lord, who stands behind Yana, laughs at the great wedding tragedy, saying to everyone that now are in her authorities, but instead the demon kills her. Everyone is shocked, but Celica notices that the messenger grins at death witches. At the same moment, Lord of Demons disappears and the energy of Haas is dissipated. On continent, Milza receives a message about that Tio became the recognized ruler. Sist Milza is not interested in him, but the wizard I report to him informs that Tio is very popular among the locals. Residents, and seeing his success uprising independent nobles way gain momentum. This guy hurt himself because at that very moment a soldier came running and Mills reported that some nobles attacked one of their fortresses. Mills enraged when he finds out that the fortress captured by an army consisting mainly of the commoner. Wizard tells him that this is no longer an uprising but a war and we must finish it as soon as possible. Mills still doesn't understand why civilians are trying to start a war against him when he is their lord, and Wizard advises him to attack civilians because now they are his enemies. Mills is not sure it's a good idea, but the wizard says they have no choice and Mills agrees and announces that first they will attack the village of white witches, then werewolves, and then on independent nobles who lead the rebellion. He goes on indeed, burns down the village of witches, makes werewolf run and then deal with it. And with the nobles, Mills sure that now nobody he won't be able to resist him. But the wizard claims that if Tia returns to continent, she will change the course of events. Mills refuses to perceive her as a threat and declares that he will kill her when it looks like the wizard will appear again. Trouble for themselves because, while they talking, Tia returns to the continent of Silica, learned of the atrocities. Milsa and says that he will be the most. Tio responds to a difficult opponent that defeating him is the most important thing for them. Now in the future he reunites with Lossie and the rest, who are happy about his return. Lossie congratulates Tio on winning the cyst, but he's not happy that he still has time becoming the leader of their army. Soon begins the meeting of the union members and Lossie conveys Ilki's word, but she is interrupted by Tio, who asks everyone to observe a minute of silence memory of those killed at the hands of Mills. Then Silica starts her speech, but she is again interrupted by nobles who say that Theo was supposed to stay on the continent and fight Mills on and not free. One of them asks him for his homeland. Decide on priorities, but others they think it's more important to discuss now the future than the past. They think that Lasik should lead their group 10 wage war against the Milza, and Tio agrees with them. He admits his guilt for the death of people while he was in the system, and to correct the situation voluntarily challenges to fight Milm. And when his Tio claims that he can't do it, this is alone, and asks the nobles who allow. He asks the younger one to lead them, Brother Villa, to give him permission, and he agrees. After this, Lossie announces Theo is their leader in the upcoming Battle of Themes in time. Marion invites Milza and Viking Princess for tea and praises him for the conquest of the territory of the Villa. Mills and red-haired girl argue about how to properly manage the rebels, and Marion says that they can act as they wish. They think it's necessary, but she doesn't want it because of this instability. Arose explains the current state of affairs and thinks they at every chance defeat the Union once and for all, but her everything still worried Theo. Mills return knows that Theo will come for him and plans deal with it when it happens. Marion warns him not to underestimate Theo and asks to seek help if he needs it at this time. At that moment, Albus comes and says that Tio is going to reclaim the Forest of Eternity. Darkness LZ comes. Rage leaves to meet him face to face, and Marion warns him again not to underestimate. Teamed up with werewolves and witches to discuss strategy. He wants to fight in the upcoming battle. Mills and in the dense forest because there he will have an advantage. Salika says, will be the hardest thing later when they will be necessary to capture the castle. Claims that for this they need a lot. Soldier and Lasik are working on it now. Jews also reports with them about the uprising in regions which is headed by Milant. The Vikings he heard about the slave revolt. Tan wants to offer them cooperation. Tio agrees and begins to prepare for. Meanwhile, Milza was furious at the battle at the forest was taken away from him, and he decides immediately attack him. His wizard asks not to rush and wait until Theo will come out of the forest because he wants to fight. It would be a serious mistake to be in the forest with him. Mez doesn't like that his wizard is leading him. Himself is a fan of Theo and he shuts him up before he orders an army to be raised and attack the Forest of Eternal Darkness. He is possessed. To defeat Theo and force him regret that he got involved with him. Soon there will be a battle and werewolves in the forest will take advantage of the thick fog to ambush enemy soldiers and kill them one by one. White witches will also attack enemies with poisonous fog, killed many of them. Tio's army is also fighting the enemies. When does Milza captain appear, orders the soldiers to retreat. He loses and then life trying to fight with Dearzo. that his soldiers are safe. Hiding in the forest, Mil decides not pursue them and head straight to the castle Theo, but the thorny vines block him the path and separate him from the army. Despite it, is he who continues to move forward and soon gets to the castle with a few. He challenges the soldiers to a duel, but he says that Mil should admit defeat and return Mil's curses, but still retreats, and all the Ba thinks that next time he will come with more army. Mil for still haven't found the fat man he caught earlier and continues to complain about it. The wizard tells him that Theo will come out of the forest and attack him, and thinks that then he will kill him. Wizard offers him to send his army to south to fight with Lasik, because then Theo will come out of the forest and they will be able to let's figure it out. Milzy likes this idea and he orders the wizard immediately start preparing. Silica gets message that the army of Mills is on its way to the south to fight the Vos and tells Theo that it's a trap. She thinks that they need to play along and collect for now an army of civilians to fight back. Theo no longer wanted to ask for civilians fight for him, and he felt guilty because innocent people died in the war. The listener consoles him by saying that people ready to die for him, and it's his. He encourages. He states that they will go to the castle of Milza with full force and they will capture him. While he is away, connects with other wizards and tells them about his plan before asks them to buy time so that seize the castle from the younger brother. The wizard Veller has a plan, and she asks Sassy Luca leave everything to her. When Mills heading south, he receives news that Veller's younger brother left the castle and even left his own there. He thinks that it happened because the nobles had not yet accepted Theo as reliable ally and wants to capture the castle first, and to deal with Velisic he orders his wizard as best he can rather capture the castle and part of the army leaves for protection. After this, Milza continues his journey and discovers that Theo has deceived him and gathered a large army to fight him. He wants to defeat him, but the wizard dissuades him because they're much less. Mil is furious that they tell him to run, and he directs his dagger on the wizard, but in the end agrees with his advice and retreats his castle. There he waits for his allies will come to his aid in the battle with the army Theo, but finds out that Marion will come with 300. Saw the temporary fortress and Mizo understands the huge army in front of him that maybe now he will endure defeat, but he is not ready to give up without a fight. However, the bad news continues to enter and Lasik also arrives at the castle with his army. Mil decides that he can't wait for Marion and must fight with the wizard, asks his enemies alone him stop saying that to fight with a huge army alone that's suicide. Milza refuses to listen, telling him that he shouldn't get involved Marion in this war because if she the alliance forces will also lose. Doomed. He thanks the wizard for help in previous battles and says that Theo is a seer who understands that true power is in the people, but Mil for now not is ready to admit it and declares that it will be fight for your ideals until death, and the wizard follows him. He jumps from his army and Theo receives a signal that the battle is about to begin. Melissa not draws attention to the temporary fortress in front of him and jumps straight to Theo's base despite the fact that his soldiers are dying from enemy arrows. When half of his army, the captain, passes through the fortress, Theo closes the gate on his side and enters into battle with the remaining soldiers. Milza is angry but still leads his people, the remaining soldiers, and breaks through. He is about to collide with the enemy ranks by the Lasik army, but at the last moment decides to turn around and attack. Theo Posic is unhappy with this and decides to pursue Mills, and the younger brother Wheeler comes to him. Meanwhile, Milla's army came to the rescue, approaches Theo, who decides to take him away civilians from the battlefield because not he wants them to die senselessly, tells them to back off because they don't. Milla's army is equal but civilians are not. They want this, they want to take revenge on the person who killed many of them and ask for Theo protect them and lead them into battle. Theo touch their determination and creates its own gigantic flag to protect soldiers. Soon Milza climbs over the fence and goes to Theo. The soldiers follow him, are forced retreat from a hail of arrows from Mills continues to reflect arrows while searching for Theo, but this bout makes him stop attacking him with lightning. Right after that, Aisha jumps on him with a powerful blow and Milza somehow blocks it. Then he is attacked by the werewolf twins, but he manages to push back Aisha, and when the twins then attack with one blow, Serwin's turn and he tries kill quietly, but he stops him attack and knocks down Mamiza, distracted by the sound of the sound, uses a huge fireball to kill him, but Milza somehow survives and rushes to he attacks her, but Theo in last minute saves his girlfriend. Milza challenges him to a duel and Theo accepts the challenge. To the horror of Slukin says him that he has no chance of winning and if he dies the future of the continent she will be under threat. She is worried that he may die, but he replies that he won't can retreat and she asks him defeat, hugs her and says that she must believe in him, and then heading to Mills, both leaders enchant their weapons using their coats of arms, and the entire battlefield freezes watching their battle. Mills attacks first, and Tio follows his strategy, blocking his attacks and countering strike at the right moment. Mills dodges his attacks and tries to inflict a fatal blow strike, but Theo blocks it with his LZ shield, continues to attack, and Theo gets a few minor wounds though tries to block all attacks. Mill continues to curse him, and soon Theo says that he became breathless, much weaker since their last meeting, and notes that Misa is already at the limit of his opportunities. Mill gets furious, attacks recklessly, even more exhausts, loses balance, and Theo says that his army had already surrendered to Mills. Refuses to die so easily and again rushes at Theo, who manages to disarm him and bring him to his knees. Theo coldly approaches him and asks, give up your coat of arms to die and be nice. Chooses death. Theo pierces him in the chest, kills Warlock. Mills can't come to terms with the fact that his master died, therefore he kills himself to follow him. After this, the Mills coat of arms is destroyed and turns into a chaos energy sphere. With Theo's allies' approval, absorbs this energy and his coat of arms evolves. It claims that they avenged the death villas and announces a minute of silence in memory of his former commander. Silja runs up to him and hugs him, saying how she is glad that he won. She asks him never do that again, and Tio promises that it won't happen because now he has no one to be with personally. After this, clouds over, they disperse and Theo celebrates his victory. Meanwhile, Marion and his allies learns that miles away he heroically died, and in the fight with Tio she is upset that she lost his strongest ally and demands explain why he didn't wait for them. The wizard says that miles away he understood that there is no point in waiting for reinforcements and wanted to endanger his wife. She admits his defeat in this battle and decides not to slowly return to his territory until Tio and his allies attacked her from the other side. By Tio and the allies reach the castle, which they captured from the militia, and pay tribute respect for Vi. After this, Lossie kneels before Theo and offers to become his subordinate again, having abandoned his coat of arms. Tio asks the nobles if they had any objection, and the Queen Mother replies that everyone recognized him as their leader, and also they even offer to become his subordinates. Vio's brother laughs to become Tio's subordinate. What surprises everyone is that Tio accepts everyone, and Selyuk declares him the official leader union, and everyone applauds. When he sits down, Theo then declares that he will take the throne, continue the work of the villa, and achieve eternal peace on the continent. He declares that they will remain neutral and break the union to reconcile with the Lasik alliance, and others think that this is not the most best idea because it can lead to an imbalance of power, as the union will become too weak and the alliance will win. The top T answers that they will still be there, support the union, but will try stop the war with the alliance to achieve equilibrium. He states that now their future depends on the union and they must make them cooperate. Theo says that they can put all these problems aside for tomorrow and today. You need to celebrate. He arranges the most grandiose victory, a party that everyone saw for the last few years, and everyone is having fun. When the party ends late at night, Sluka goes to her room and sees that Tihi is waiting for her. He wants to talk about something important and invites her to his room. She pours him tea and congratulates him on that he became the leader of the union. She says that all the nobles recognized him as their own leader and now people respect him more than ever. Theo suddenly feels himself as an imposter and thinks that he is not deserves the love and respect, that he still blames himself for his death. Thousands of soldiers and civilians, and promises that this will never happen again. Theo says his ultimate goal still remains the same, to return to the homeland and rule there peacefully, but there is a small change in plans and he wants to laugh. The servant was also with him. She replies that swore to him eternal fidelity and will be serve him all his life, and Theo understands that she doesn't listen to him. He hugs her and says he wants to see her next to, not like a sorceress with whom signed a contract with he as his wife. Luke is touched and begins to cry. Taking his proposal, she says that they need hide your relationship until everything is clear. Resolves and hugs him, asking not to die in the coming battles. Sue. After this, Theo and Luke come to Priscilla and they say that the Pope declared him. Silva believes that he is the owner of the Holy Grail, that Priscilla is the real owner of the Holy Grail because she has the same coat of arms. Priscilla confirms is, and Theo asks explain to girls what a saint is. Grail. Stilko explains that the church claims that if all the coats of arms in the world unite with the Holy Grail, they will be able to call upon God who will destroy Kos once and forever, and it is the same as the coat of arms Emperor Steele. You think that because Priscilla is the real owner of the Saint Grail, Pope's opponent may try. She also warns against attacking her Theo, that Dad can come and get him with the coat of arms. He answers that if he can save the world by giving up your coat of arms, then he will gladly do it. Later that same day, they receive news that the best Lara's friend and one of the most influential Union nobles, in the Marian War, Silica, received a report that a new Union leader, Dawson, betrayed him and destroyed his army before moving on the side of the Alliance. She claims that the traitor is trying to lure to his side of the Alliance nobles, but for now he has failed. Tio is worried about this news and is afraid that the Union is now on the brink. Rotsvala Silica says that she has an idea that can change everything and offers to talk to Alexei. Some Tio doubts that they will be accepted after they left the Union, but Silica is sure that Alexis still wants to talk to them. They board the ship and set off. Alexis Tio sees the territory in the port, huge armored warships, and Silica tells him that they are like that, slow, that useless in battle, therefore they are called peaceful ships. Until they admire the ships, they are approached. Irwin and informs that Alexis wants meet them immediately. They are going to his workshop, and Alexis, still the same old fembo who admires Theo's achievements in the recent war, disappointed that Theo and his allies left the Union, and asks them to return, even offering to become the leader of the Union. Of Theo refuses because he wants to be mediator between the Union and the Alliance, but Alexis doesn't believe they will ever. He believes they will be able to find common ground again. What if I hadn't been so persistent in peace negotiations with the Alliance? Then Na would have lost the villa and other aristocrats. Theo consoles him by saying that if he decided to start a war, then I would lose Marian. Alexis says she's still the best and important person for him. That's why he tried to achieve peace, but Marian was another and instead started a war. Silica says that Marian wants to create the coat of arms of the Emperor, having conquered the whole continent. Alexis notes that they could do this. What would you do if you just got married? Silica replies that there are people who don't want them to get married, and what exactly are behind this great wedding tragedy. Ty Vibus declares that he wants to prevent the tragedy and bring the world back to normal, to the time when the Union and the Alliance must were to unite. Alexis feels that now it is impossible, and Silica objects, telling him that they just need to find balance between Union, Alliance, and treaty to make it happen. She tells Alexis that most of the nobles in the Union did not see wars, and therefore their armies are still in full order. Of the armies, the Alliance under Marian's command suffered serious losses. She asks him to rise and change the situation, but Alexis is weak, who can't do this. Theo tells him that he has to do it to save Marian, who is still he loves him. He thinks that even if she will conquer the continent and create a coat of arms emperor, she can never be happy without her beloved. Alexis can't believe Marian still loves him, and Theo assures him that this is so. He asks Alexis to stop his the woman, and he remembers how they once promised to marry Alexis. Suddenly he takes the sword and goes out into the street, all in shock by what he sees, a guy with a gun, and he tells his sorceress that is going to attack the traitor. Dawson, the sorceress, can't believe it, but still orders to collect immediately army. When the news that Alexis started to act reaches the soldiers, they are happy to join the battle of those. In the meantime, Dawson enjoys life after joining and now believes that he is not afraid of anyone. He declares that in the Union is full of idiots and weaklings, and suddenly a soldier bursts into his room and reports that Alexis is leading a huge army to their castle. Dawson looks on in shock window and sees that the army is almost at his doors. It's not just Alexis, with him all the lords of the Union united to deal with the traitors. Seeing such, Dawson almost put a huge army in pass and contacted Marian so that she sent him back. She said that the army is busy fighting the Union and does not can come to his aid. Instead, she asked him to prove himself and defeat enemies alone to his accepted. In Alexis's Union refuses to let go Rat and says that if Dawson gives it his coat of arms and the land, he will leave him alive. He was furious to receive this message, and he decides to declare war on the Union forces, motivates his army and mercenaries by promising they will get big rewards if they win. When Alexis sees Dawson's army, he approaches and sighs because everything still wants it all to end without. He uses his skills to shed blood artists and waves his baton to protect your soldiers. When you send them, he orders the cavalry to fight, surround the enemy troops and squeeze them into a tight ring so that the archers can easily. They were struck by his encirclement strategy and destroying enemies is very effective and enemy soldiers can't even give rebuff. Dawson looks at the battlefield and understands what Alexis is trying to portray on a starry night. He sees his incredible strength and admits defeat. Soon news Marion hears about Dawson's defeat, but she's not really worried. She's asking Austin, who commands the Union troops, and speechless when he says what it is Alexis. She can't believe that he entered the battle and orders Austin tell all allies so that they don't underestimate him just because he doesn't look like a fighter. She runs to her room and falls on the bed thinking about that. Why was Alexis on the field at all? She doesn't want to worry about him, so that he would be drawn into bloody Sioux. After Alexis leads the fleet to battle the Vikings, who are part of the Union, he takes with him huge slow armored military ships. As soon as he notices the enemy, he orders his men to stop and line up in a circle. Viking King orders his men to full speed attack. Lexa notices his strange formation and decides to surround enemy fleet and attack from all sides. On both sides he uses his coat of arms and blesses his soldiers by making them Oleg orders his men to fall into a rage. People get on small boats and wait while the Vikings approach. As soon as the Vikings begin to disperse, orders to attack and defend his own soldiers. Soldiers on ships shower Vikings berserkers with arrows, but they did not stop even after they wounded. Then Alexis orders his a huge warship to attack. Enemies drown under their blows, but some the Vikings manage to reach the ship and climb on it. Soldiers pierce them with spears and throw them back into the sea. The battle continues into the evening. Vikings lost half of their ships and Alexis hasn't suffered any losses yet. The Viking King is furious that he is about to will win, and despite the fact that the generals advise him to retreat, he refuses. He declares that he will fight like a man and die on the field fight, and uses the full power of his coat of arms to turn into a beast. Together with the remaining soldiers, he rushes at Alexis and climbs onto one of his ships, killing all the soldiers on board. Ordinary soldiers can't resist him when the Vikings BRSM, and soon the king gets to the main ship to fight Alexis. Archers surround and he is attacked from all sides, and he fights back without paying attention to his wounds. He continues to walk towards Alexis, killing soldier, but then a huge one hits him, harpoon causing critical damage. But even this is not enough to stop. He pulls out this invincible warrior harpoon from the chest and goes to his enemy. Now the soldiers are afraid to even attack him, and Alexis cries, seeing what he is in a miserable state. Soldiers surround Alexis and attack the king again. Vikings, but he just throws them away to the side. The wizard standing next to Alexis finally gets out the poisoned daggers and throws them at the Viking King to disable it. Using at that moment, one of the soldiers cuts off the king's head, but he continues to move forward, although without a head. He finally falls and blood gushed out. The body flooded the entire ship. Alexis feels weak in the knees when he sees this terrible picture, and his wizards support him. While the coat of arms the Viking King is smashed and his chaotic energy begins to gather, he steps forward and absorbs her Sioux. After this, the bow comes to Marion to tell her that after defeats of the Viking King, three forces Union unification and contract are equal. She wants conclude a truce between the Union and unification, but Marion refuses, claiming that the Union is still stronger and she ready to fight with anyone who stands in front of me. She is on the way with the League, agrees with her solution, but still warns that fighting each other is not the best idea because that's exactly what he wants, their real enemy. Marion asks about what does she say, and if she answers, perhaps the Academy wizard at the root. She has no proof of all evils, but she believes that it was they who summoned the demon at Marion's great wedding ceremony. Says that they will find out the truth later. The end of the battle, and when the Slig leaves, she asks but they told Alexis to make him join the fight. Slig replies that Alexis wants that she didn't follow the path of violence because it will only hurt. In the end, Marion shudders upon hearing this and declares that won't stop after so many victims. Silica replies that Theo and Alexis are ready to stop her, and Marion leaves, orders everyone to gather so that discuss a plan of action because she is going to declare war on the Union. When she leaves and begins to tremble with fear, anticipating a terrible war, but then pulls himself together and decides to see things through. By the end, Theo and his allies had already arrived to the place of the future battle and began preparing for the meeting, and Luke reports that Marion's army is coming soon, will arrive, and there will be less than 40 of them. Allied forces will also be on site soon, but they too will need time. Lords worried that they will have to fight the Union alone, but Theo, he assures them that there is nothing to worry about, suggests not to show aggression and just hold the position for now. The Union will arrive soon. Marion with her the army is on the battlefield and gives the order to begin. The attack was given to Marion's allies Attack on giant magical beasts. I break through the enemy lines and Luca sees that they are approaching. She knows that this must be her strategy father, but this time, she is ready. Outwit him. Union archers attack first but can't penetrate. Armor magical beasts and retreat. When enemies cross the border, archers on the backs of giant beasts begin counterattack, but they are swept away from the towers, which are equipped with powerful arrow thrower. The beast becomes enraged when it pierces with arrows, and before moving then he destroys the tower. There is a pit waiting for him, a trap pen. The beast falls into it, and the soldiers, the alliance forces, finish him off with a hail of arrows. Decide to retreat, seeing that their main, the weapon, is destroyed, but Lasik attacks them on the other side. On the other side, Brotherville commands the archers so that they attack the enemies, and they find themselves in the minority. Marion understands that things are going well. They are not doing well, and learns that the Vikings are not. They can send them reinforcements because they fight with them in the sea. Queen the Mother fights with them and orders to take explosives to his soldiers' ships to attack the Viking prince. Viking orders his fleet to disperse, but the Queen Mother's wizard increases the speed of exploding ships and causes them to collide with ships. Vikings, which leads to a series of powerful explosions shaking the battlefield. Lasik and his people are stunned by this spectacle and lose vigilance. What does it give to enemies? Advantage. Marion thinks it is the right time for her to step into battle with his main forces, and Theo also prepares for battle. As soon as the fighting spirit of his soldiers enters the battle, rises, and they follow their hero and plasma arrows. But they still then both armies receive serious injuries. They rush to attack each other, and Sullivan's other allies are the same. Enter the battle. Lasik continues destroy enemy knights. Silas is with several wizards at the same time. Shell as always, Zos as and Derwin and the twins quickly deals with alliance archers. Battle continues and the forces of both sides are equal. Seleka magically blocks a whole batch of plasma arrows, but she's already running out of breath. She's trying fight again, but Theo also falls, picks her up. In this desperate moment, Alexis appears with his army, and Theo's soldiers think that now Marion will win. He realizes that they are not will be able to defeat them both and orders his troops to retreat. Immediately also decides to leave the battlefield and asks Siluku to organize a meeting of the three. Again, the leaders' meeting is taking place, and Marion is not can look Alexis in the eyes, and he doesn't. Theo might take his eyes off her to sits down and says that he has to. The first proposal is a truce between three forces, but Marion says that it is impossible because the truce will go for the benefit only of their true enemy, who was behind the wedding tragedy. Alexis has no idea what she's talking about. Speaks and explains that their true enemy, the Academy of Wizards, is what they created. The current system of nobility and always ruled the world. From the wall, Alexis looks at his wizard, but he turns away look because it seems something about it knows. Marion claims that the nobles just puppets in the hands of magic academies, and they use them to epic chaos never ends. He answers that this is their chance to free themselves from control, but she believes that the Academy will not allow it. They sign a truce and they do something will take steps to prevent this. Then Theo puts forward his second proposal, Marion and Alexis's marriage. He wants to they united their coats of arms, and then he will give them his, which will lead to the creation Imperial coat of arms. Lovers shudder upon hearing this, and Marion says, Theo, what is it? It won't work because the tragedy will repeat itself. She knows that the Academy will take action as soon as the coats of arms will unite, and that's why all this. For a time, she fought alone to become theirs. The only goal she is ready sacrifice yourself so that people can the continent realize that magic, the Academy, is their real enemy, and so someone was able to fix everything in the future. T claims that they now have the best a chance to fix everything, but Marion screams that won't accept it. When he asks why is she so stubborn, she is in tears. He answers in front of my eyes that he doesn't want to. She drags Alexis into a bloody or just wants him to be safe, but he says he only wants one thing, fight by her side. Alexis brings out her outside and asks to look at him, an army that lined up in the shape of a flower, the same as the one he left with her rooms at Marion Academy. Takes a step forward and Alexis lowers herself down in front of her. She kneeled down asking to become his queen, turns away saying that he doesn't deserve it because she allowed the mile to take it. Alexis is shocked, but asks the card did she love Milzu when she did this. After learning that she never had feelings for he tells the prince that there is nothing in it scary. Alexis admits that she still loves her no matter what and wants so that she would accept his love. Marion cries saying that she is to blame for the death thousands of people and has no right to be. He happily takes her hands and says that Marianne will also share her grief. Surprised but still doubtful, and Theo decides to reveal that they are also with the case secretly married. Sluka is embarrassed that he so revealed their secret, but she supports her man when he explains that people who love each other friend should be together no matter what he says is that if the world doesn't accept them love he will change him at any cost. Marion finally succeeds and for the last time asks Alexis if he wants more. He is ready to marry her and repeat his words as much as she needs, and she crying accepting his offer. They kiss and the soldiers greet joyfully. Later Marion and Alexis tell them Tio that they will give him their coats of arms so that he will become. They believe that he is the emperor, the only one who can change the world. Then Sluka tells him to accept it. Tio agrees with their decision and asks, behold, Luke convey this message throughout the world, the continent. Meanwhile, the head of the academy learned about the unification of 3 noble factions and began to act. He sends assassins after wizards who are more devoted to their masters and the academy and deals with them in secretly while he watches the destruction. The vampire king appears behind him. Dmitri, the head of the academy, tells him that the nobles united to create the seal of the emperor and now the academy must fight them in open combat for Guad to win. He claims that it is done for the sake of fulfilling their will. The lore and king of vampires agrees. Tio disappears and Lucas sit on the shore lakes when they receive messages from the wizard who was attacked by the killers. He transmits a message to all wizards on continent that the academy entered the battle. They announced that they would attack everyone wizards loyal to the nobles and soon they will start a war with the nobles themselves. The wizard tells everyone to break their magic wands because academy tracks them down and warns them that academy is dangerous. Tio and other leaders immediately calling the nobles at the magicians academy declares war on. Selka claims that the magic academy will not allow create the emperor's coat of arms at any cost and the only way out is to fight them. Then she announces plans to merge Union Treaty and army into one imperial and army that will come out against the academy. Magicians are all happy to hear this. But this is Luke warns that the battle will be more difficult than ever and those who don't want fight can leave right now. The nobles have no doubt that they will join fight, but the queen mother asks wizards what are they going to do. All wizards swear that they are faithful their owners and will never leave them. But Alex's wizard claims that he will be on the side of the Academy of Magic, asks for permission to terminate the contract and leave, and she lets him go. Wizard leaves with other people who they don't want to participate in the war and they don't want to thanks everyone who stayed. Then she orders the wizards to break their magic wands because Academy can monitor them and spy. Wizards know that this will make things much more difficult use magic, but they follow her. Onions break their sticks to show that they are ready to fight against the Academy magic. Later as Luca discusses with his father's strategy for the upcoming war, a significant number of nobles and the wizards have left them and they understand that the battle will be very difficult. Selka believes that the inability to communicate the battlefield without magic wands will be a big disadvantage, but Abbas tells her find a way to communicate because now she is the leader of all wizards in the Empire army. She is glad to hear that her father trusts and says that this is their first time work together. Suddenly, Aisha comes in and her mood gets worse when she sees Asilica, asks her join the meeting and try convince him to forgive his father for what he did, tried to kill her, but Aisha doesn't want it. Makes Silico remembers as in the past she broke the academy rules by releasing from the zoo cat demon and the cat comes out hearing her name. Aisha says, no, I could believe that the director of the academy magic is so determined to kill her in that day, and instead of protecting daughter decided to support his Silic. Thanks Aisha for saving her academy that day. Having sacrificed for her with her career as a sorceress, Aisha claims that Albus should have done it because he is her adoptive father and asks what he thinks about them, replies that he is proud of both of them and that they are both his daughters. And the Suka hugs his shell, can only be angry because that she was kicked out of the family when she was able to become a sorceress. After that they disperse to their tents and go to bed. Returns to work, she falls asleep thinking about how great it was to spend it again time with family when hears how Aisha calls her. She comes out of the chambers to ask what she needs, but Aisha suddenly attacks her. Fortunately Erwin was on check and protected. Sulukan does this and realizes with horror that all this time she worked for the Academy magic, and Shayla admits that she was spy of which academy and tells reported to the Academy about all of his in the actions of Priscilla. Also comes there hearing the nose, and Sluka is glad that everything is okay with her. Okay, Aisha says that she doesn't. They ordered to kill her. Theo also woke up and calls everyone inside to calm down. Talk Aisha eyed up Pan when Theo asks her to explain everything. She tells him about the organization he works for and that she was ordered to kill Luca and her mistress. She says that just tried to do it, but she didn't have any luck. It worked out, but Tio knows she did it. He specifically says that she needed it. Just ignore the order. If I was going to break it anyway, and Ashel shows the magic circle on his chest that will stop her heart. If she suddenly obeys the magic circle, it starts to work and she moans from pain. Tio and Erwin free her and Sluka looking for his wand to destroy magic circle, but he understands that she broke it and panicked thinking that it was Ashel will die because she couldn't kill her. She hugs her and cries. But then Priscilla gets up and says that he won't let her to die. She uses her coat of arms of the Saint Grail and pours Sanergy into Aisha's magic circle, cleansing it. Priscilla falls and Sluka hugs her. Thanks for Aisha, thanks her for saving her. She saved her life. But then she says that because of this I lost mine superpowers and now he won't be able to fight in the war. She says that her should be executed for attempting to kill Emperor. But Theo replies that it is not. Then he asks her to tell all about her secret organization. Janusz Ashelon summons the Demon Lord during the Great Wedding Tragedy, ere the organization seeks to control Haas and not let the aristocrats destroy him because then they will disappear. She claims magical powers and coats of arms, that they were working on creating Magic Academy and eliminated everyone aristocrats who could become the Emperor. Silly Pod as not understand why the Magic Academy is trying so hard keep chaos and consider that lost magical powers are not a sufficient reason. Echelons of many lords to their side and superhumans. At this moment in the tent, a soldier runs in and tells Theo that many aristocrats and supermen arranged. He understands the unrest in the Imperial Army, that they also maintain a secret organization and decides to take it immediately. Aisha also wants to take control of the situation, help, but the bow grabs her from behind and Theo decides that they can sort this out with your feelings alone. In the meantime, after a battle that lasted all night, rebellious aristocrats and supermen were defeated, while leaders look upon the fallen soldiers and aristocrats. Theo's asked question, is it really Imperial? The coat of arms poses such a threat to Magic Academy that they are ready to enter. So for Alexis also wants to know answer, but Marion thinks that now we need to focus on victory over the abused Magical Academy. Believes that they are not ready to fight them yet, but Theo is sure that they have no other choice. He claims that he is support. Teepeland orders his troops as you can go to the Academy of Topics as soon as possible. Over time, the church also decided to join war. The new pope declares that the nobles useless and all they do is fight. He hates each other the most, Theo, because that leader of the nobles and declares a holy war on him. No matter how it's strange that he uses his coat of arms to create a giant flag and bless his subordinates in the same way as he does Theo. Soon the church army reaches Theo and everyone are wondering why they are friends. Theo rebelled against them. He believes that the church should be connected with the Academy Magic because their actions are too suspicious and they prevent them from getting there before the Academy. Abuse found out that in the army the church has only a few thousand soldiers and mercenaries, but they have many followers, mostly women, children, and old people. Theism wants innocent civilians and volunteers. Beta dirty Lasik. Priscilla suddenly did the work for him, declares that there is no need to fight because it is not God's will. That she wants meet with Dad to convince him stop, but Theo thinks that it's too dangerous. He thinks Dad will attack her because she is true the owner of the Holy Grail. No, Priscilla claims that she has to talk to him and to fulfill his duty. Silica agrees with Priscilla and thinks that it is worth it. Let her talk to Dad because that the church army will attack sooner or later on then, and it will be better if they can do it. Prevent. Theo does not want her to alone, was exposed to danger and forced he volunteers to go with her. In the meantime, Dad is having a meeting with his commanders who believe that combat the spirit of their followers is low because they don't want to fight with Theo, who considered a hero. Besides, because Priscilla serves him, many people are inclined support Theo. Papa wants to know will be able whether they will win, and his commanders believe that it is impossible, but they don't want to win. One of them claims that they can afford the Imperial Army destroy your followers, and that's it. Probably a Pedora Willows if luck when they leave to negotiate with the Pope. Now uses the broom they gave her white witches to make better use of Ashan. Erwin also accompany their magic them as security, and Theo asks them return alive. They leave and soon get to the church camp. Dad with a smug look awaits them, and the bow tells him that Theo doesn't want to fight with him and that his only goal is destroy the Academy of Magic. Dad says that he is ready to accept it but wants to laugh. Theo gave him all the coats of arms in the Imperial Army because it considers that coats of arms belong to God. He claims that any who monopolize has united all the coats of arms followers. They start to believe her, and this brings Dad and his people are in a panic. They blame her for it, that it leads their followers astray, but here Priscilla comes out in support Theo. When she shows her face, Dad starts sweating because he knows that she real. Priscilla tell the crowd that Theo really wants to bring peace to everyone, and I am ready to support the church in this claims. But the founder of the church, Ziasno, made it clear that they should not impose their religious beliefs to others, and the crowd believes her, and everything turns around. Priscilla points hers in her direction, the coat of arms, and the followers of the church understand that this is the real Holy Grail. They cry and bow before her, recognizing her as their own leader. Priscilla tells them that only Theo can bring peace to continent. I asks everyone to support him. Dad is still confused. One of his commanders tell him to pull yourself together because that's what a girl can do. Take his place. He asks what he should do, and the commander says what needs to be done: kill her and turn her coat of arms into energy Hassa to undermine people's faith in her. Dad starts clapping and comes up to they came. But Erwin and Aisha already understood him. Dad's intention is to help Theo, and she asks Priscilla to support him. Looks at him with lifeless eyes, knowing full well that her dad is waiting for her. Takes out a knife, and when Erwin lunges to stop him, Priscilla orders him to stop sharp. She lets Dad pretend with her gaze that he hugs her, and he hits her with a knife. Everyone panics when Priscilla falls, and Dad orders his soldiers arrest hearing at the same time, announcing Priscilla heretics, and attacks the knights. But Sluka stops her because if she will kill the Pope to avoid war with the church, it will be impossible. The Pope declares that the sacred coat of arms of Priscilla is a fake, and after her death, it will turn into a sphere. Chaos. Silica answers that this is the law nature. No. Priscilla tells her she wasn't sad. She claims that it was her true duty that she owed was to be performed, and when she dies instead of chaos is released from her body. Divine energy of Silica falls on knees seeing her friend Diane. When the church soldiers draw their swords, she stands up and addresses her followers, asking them if they had just seen. She blames the sin committed by their dad. His is that he is an impostor and a dad. The Roman orders his soldiers to attack them. Deshala rushes forward and kills the attacking soldiers, and Erwin joins her. They with ease defeat all the soldiers, and then the coat of arms Priscilla begins to glow even brighter instead of turning into a sphere. Haas followers exclaim that this is indeed. Even the Pope understands that he has done the biggest mistake in his life, killing her. Commander orders her to absorb the Holy Grail and become the owner of the true Saint Grail to be useful secret organizations. A dad is already tired of it, and he orders to kill her. Commander already is about to strike, but then Erwin appears and saves her so that use. Later, Commander runs away. Slew stops Erwin so that he doesn't pursue him because it's no use. Instead, she asks him call Theo. Here he leaves, and Dad falls on his knees. Slika addresses followers and tells them that everything that what Priscilla said was true, and Theo will unite all the Holy Grails. And Theo, he learns about Priscilla's death and is furious, cries realizing that she knew she had to die to convert followers' churches to his side. Then he heads to the church base with Lassie, Erwin, and the twins. He's still dead. Grief over the loss of the Prelila tells him that many of their allies would die in a war against the Academy of Magic, but he must stay alive. As Emperor Theo gets to church and mourns, the servant tells everyone that now Theo, the owner of the Holy Grail, is true representative of their god, and all swear by him infidelity. And he notices Dad and asks Luke to interrogate him because he doesn't even want to see his face. After this, Theo takes Priscilla's body and heading to his camp. At the Academy, Magic director talks to his boss, a mysterious woman named Pandora, who tells him that it is impossible let the Hasira end because it will lead to the end of the world. Also, the Vampire King appears shortly after this. The servant reports that the Imperial army is approaching the city. The director orders to release the most powerful weapons from the Academy's arsenal, and even the servant is afraid of him. Teal examines the Academy of Magic, which is similar to Fortress. He remembers the sacrifice of Priscilla, and he swears that he won't let her disappear. In vain does he order the Queen Mother and Alexis to lead the army. Lasika says that he is his trump card in this battle, so he needs to wait patiently for his cues. Teo orders his army attack, but before they can do so, make it fly out of the Academy of Magic. Huge magic crystal wizard the classic looks at him and recognizes him, the legendary one-eyed monster named Cyclops, who in the past almost destroyed the Academy of Magic along with his plot. They managed to seal it after numerous victims and to carry out many experiments. Wizards Academy surround the magical crystal and remove the seal from the Cyclops. When the monster he is freed, he breaks the chains and kills the wizards who are him released. Lasik trembles with excitement and fear and asks his wizard how can they defeat Cyclops. Wizard says it would be suicide, but Lasik asks him to find a way to do this says that in the past there were wizards defeated him, using a giant as spotlight to burn out his eye, and Lasik reminds him that he is also a master of magic of light. The wizard sighs, but accepts the order of his teacher and says that they must defeat the Cyclops. Tio receives the message, and although Silica thinks this is a bad idea, knows that Lasik won't stop even if he will ask him about it. Silica notes that Lasik is one of their strongest warriors, and they need him to win the war. Answers that this is precisely why they can't stop him. In the meantime, Lasik leads a small group in pursuit monster and voluntarily distracts him. For now, they are not preparing for battle. He claims that his teacher Theo performed miracles and became the emperor, and now it's his turn, proof that he is worthy of serving him. The monster notices him, and Lasik rushes at him. Kim with his two superhuman soldiers, they disperse and distract his, and the wizard casts a spell to concentrate a powerful beam of light. Lasik enchants his sword with his coat of arms and throws a shield when he rushes at the Cyclops and delivers a deep strike to his leg. The monster becomes enraged and rushes after him, and the archer shoots him in the eye so that stop him arrows can't pierce, but Lasik takes advantage of this chance to climb onto the monster's body and hit him in the eye. The Cyclops responds and pushes him away before hitting him with both hands. The mercenary from Iron the Case pushes Lasik away from danger, and the Cyclops takes the blow on himself and he tries to eat it, but Lasik still strengthens his body more so that suffer. Lasik attacks Cyclops and chops off his toe. Why does he becomes even more enraged and throws mercenary on the ground, striking suddenly. The wizard says Lasik that he is ready. Lasik distracts the monster's attention and throws his sword to distract him. He himself gives the signal to the wizard to attack. The wizard shoots a powerful laser beam into the monster's eye, blinding him forever and knocking down. Then Lasik mounts the horse, enchants his spear and climbs onto the monster, strikes him in the chest with all his might. He thrusts the spear inside with a powerful force push and kills the giant monster. The wizard runs up to the exhausted, who immediately rushes to the iron body. They see that its hardness has disappeared and they start to cry, but the archer gently strokes in and throws off his iron body covered herself, and the wizard rises again, glad to see him alive, and explains that his the heart and lungs stop. When he turns out, he worries the most about Cyclops and learns that Lasik defeated him. The Imperial army welcomes Lasik, calling him a giant killer, and decides unite with them. At night begins storming the Magic Academy by order. Alexis E leads the wizards and shoots fireballs to light their way, and the army goes forward fully armed. Soldiers Academy shoot at them with cannons, but only the fake towers can be destroyed. The Imperial army uses a hit and run tactics, attacking and retreating quickly to disable the Academy's troops first, and they will have time to attack. Marion leads his knights with plasma crossbows, and they attack the Academy, destroying the walls. The captain of the Academy troops orders his people continue to shoot guns even when the barrels overheat. At the ends of the guns explode, causing huge damage to their operators. In the meantime, the soldiers of the Imperial army quietly climb over the wall and attack enemies. They order the captain to surrender, and he submits. The fortress fell, and the news the director of the Academy heard about this believes that even if they will destroy, Theo must die, because after his death the nobles again will split, and the Hashiro will continue. At the same time, Theo observed a minute of silence. All of his soldiers to die in battle before then to give the order to capture the city. He also wants to take part in the battle, but Lipa tells him that everyone needs him so that to win, and he understands it perfectly well. Suddenly Theo and Celica find themselves in the forest eternal darkness, while he ponders that Celica is happening. Looking at Red Luna and understands that he brought them here. The Vampire King Dimitri, fortunately with Erwin and the twins, were walking with them, and they were together heading to the Vampire King's castle. Dimitri greets them with a creepy performed on the piano and showered with rose petals, and he begins tell about how in times Absolute Haas all fought together to defeat him. After they do it succeeded, and Haas retreated, people began fight among themselves. Dimitri asks Theo what happens if Haas disappears, and Toth answers that of course there will be many wars, but it will depend on the people of the new era. The Vampire King declares that he does not want the onset of a new era because not can survive without chaos. That's why he wants to win. Theo Echelon is coming to and tells him that even without force given to her by chaos, she will protect her sister. She attacks Dimitri, but suddenly finds himself in a different place full of human skulls. Gemini turnover do not attack him, cursing with to avenge his mother, but he easily dodges their attack. Suddenly into place the werewolf leader is with him, coffin with the real body of the Vampire King. He says that Dimitri is only in front of them, only clone, and if they kill the real one-body clone, will disappear. Dimitri laughs hearing this and transfers them to his dimension, creating hundreds of clones. He laughs at the werewolf leader, saying that even without his real body he will survive. He does not trust him and pierces him the real body of the Vampire King, which Dimitri turns to ashes and disappears, calls him a fool. When his clones, the werewolf leader, attacks him, continues to chop them down. Clones attack everyone and suck out their life force just by touching them. The Echelon then loses his vigilance, trying to protect the servant, and the vampire clones touch her. Erwin follows her, and there are only 3 werewolves left. They deal with the clones of Dimitri, but he continues to create them like Naruto. The werewolf brothers use combo attacks to attack the main clone, but it was a terrible mistake because Dimitri took advantage of this and surrounded them to absorb their life force. When all the rest are defeated, he approaches Theo and Asi Luki and says, "It's time to finish the game." He expands his territory and plunges everyone into the Sea of Haas. Everyone loses, the forces are drowning, and Theo for the last time extends his hand to all Luke. When they touch each other, the force is activated. Love and Armoran has suddenly dissipates. They hear the voice of Priscilla, who says that everything will be fine with them in order, and the Holy Grail rises from bodies. Theo burning vampire, his illusion destroyed, and everyone returns to the room. Or were you in the beginning? Theo realizes that now Dimitri can't create more clones and it's time to attack his leader. The werewolf bites him on the neck, but the vampire pierces him with his sharp claw and soars into the sky. Gemini attacks. They tear off his arms and throw him to the ground. TV thrusts his sword to strike the final blow and pierces Dimitri in the heart. Explodes when the energy of chaos in his body is getting out of control, and Theo throws everything aside with him okay, but the leader of the werewolves dies. Inbu and his sisters mourn his death. One of clones of Dimitri survive. Although too much weak and pathetic, Theo allowed the twins decide his fate, and they let him go, claiming that it was not he who killed their mother and brothers, and they don't want to be weak. Coming from their brother penetrates into theirs bodies, and in a moment everyone returns. Theo adds his own team to the Academy of Magic Army and captures the city of Academy. He enters the main hall, and next to it only Seleka demands from the Director Academy to tell about the reasons for with which he stopped the birth. Imperial coat of arms director says he needs to touch the magic tower in front of him to find out the truth. Seleka suspects that this is a trap, but Theo decides to take a chance and she decides to go with it. They touch the tower and suddenly they are transported to the shadow world. While they are guessing where did they end up, Pandora introduces herself and asks them not to end the Haas era. They ask why should they do this, and she shows them a vision. Super developed civilizations before the onset. Haas, Theo, and Seleka eras are admired, seen, and think that one day it will be able to reach such a level if the age of chaos will end. However, Tandero tells them that the civilization they see now is a super modern Earth people achieve enormous powers thanks to technologies that they are used for destruction and destroy planets because of warrior. Pandero claims that that's so that people do not take over the energy superior even to nuclear. It was decided spread Haas all over the world so that civilization could never develop beyond a certain level. Such in this way she believes that the Earth will not be destroyed, and Theo is not happy to hear it. Reasoning, Pandora disappears, repeating that they must not allow the end of an era. Chaos. Theo and Seleka find themselves in the middle of it again in the hall, and the director tells them exactly what that's why the Academy of Magic wants prevent the emergence of the Imperial Herba. Theo says that even if in the distant future the world may be destroyed because of technology, he can't allow so that people living today become. He still wants to be the victims of Haas, put an end to the era of Haas, and Shulik supports his director, gets an answer, and ends his life by drinking the poison. Theo pays tribute to him and collects together with Alexis, Marion, and the rest of the allies. Soon after, this city is filled with soldiers and people who want to see the coronation of Theo as the first emperor. He addresses the people, saying that they will strive for peace and prosperity for all. He asks everyone nobles give him their coats of arms and swear put an end to the Haas era when it creates imperial coat of arms. 3 years later, when Theo finally brought peace to the whole world, the continent is coming to the long-awaited day. Marries Sully and Alexis and Marion to find their happiness. Adding the ceremony goes without problems, and that's it. Celebrate the union of their heroes. After this, Theo collects all the coats of arms and finally creates imperial coat of arms. As soon as it is a demonic Katsuki, and Haas is disappearing all over the world too. Disappears. The world becomes calm without Haas and magic, and Theo soon leaves his throne and crown Alexis. Then he returns to Sistine with Selko and rules the country for which he went to travel, and they live long.